Welcome back to Be My Guest. I'm Perry Lefko. Joining me on the line right now is Tom Wright, who's the head of operations for UFC in Canada, New Zealand, and who knows, many other parts of the world.
Actually, Perry, it's nice to hear your voice. I actually have responsibilities for Australia and New Zealand as well. So
I'm trying to give you I'm trying to sell you that you're going to be going to bigger and better things. Okay?
No, I wouldn't say bigger and better. Just trying to expand throughout the Commonwealth. That's all.
Okay. Tom, tell us yesterday about the announcement about Winnipeg. Winnipeg seemed to just come out of the blue. Had the UFC been talking about Winnipeg as a possible destination for the UFC, either this year, next year? How did the whole thing come about?
We've been thinking about Winnipeg for quite some time. When we opened up the office here, Perry, as you know, we made a commitment to help build the sport of mixed martial arts and to take the UFC, our athletes and events across the country to as many places as possible. And it wasn't just 3 years ago that we had only held events in Montreal. And since then we've gone to Vancouver, we've gone to Toronto, we've gone to Calgary, and we always had intentions on expanding into other parts of the country, including Halifax, including Quebec City, probably Ottawa at some point, Saskatchewan, and frankly at the top of that list was Winnipeg. There's a strong culture of combat sports in Manitoba, big boxing tradition there, and frankly, it's a great sports town, brand new venue at the MTF Center, and it was just a logical next step in living up to our commitment.
When the event that happened last year in Calgary, and unfortunately it didn't work out to expectations, but Dana White had said, the UFC was going to come back as recently as a month in February. Said, "Yeah, we're definitely coming back. We owe you guys a show, or we want to make it up, so to speak, right?" So I always thought, and this is just my opinion, I always thought UFC was coming back to Calgary this year. I'm led to believe UFC will be coming back to Calgary, obviously in the future. So tell me about where did Calgary fit in the overall mosaic of the UFC's planning?
Well, Calgary remains a part of our longer-term commitment, as does Vancouver. And the fact of the matter is that when you're trying to coordinate, what I would, a total of 33 events around the world, 13 of them pay-per-view. It's a bit of it's a bit of a chess game, and it's a bit of a mosaic trying to find venue availabilities, work within schedules. A venue like the Saddle Dome has all sorts of demands on it, as does Rogers Arena. We've got regulatory issues we have to sort of manage ourselves around, and in the end, it didn't look like we were going to be able to fit Calgary into the mix for 2013, and we'd always wanted to go into Winnipeg, and the stars just aligned that it works out to coming to the MTS Center.
So I'm assuming that Calgary, at some point, UFC will be going back into Calgary.
No question. I mean, Dana's made the commitment. I've made the commitment. It will happen. It's just not as easy as people think to just decide in a couple of months to drop into a joint. It takes a lot of planning, and it's already on our radar for 2014, as is Vancouver. But you know what? Until we have a chance to sort out all the different places we're going to go around the world, that's one of the differences when you're looking at our sport than North American sport or Canadian sport. You compare it to the NHL or the CFL. I mean, we know that CFL is going to be in 8 cities and the NHL is going to be in 30. With us, we just there's demand and there's competition for these events from major markets around the world in all 5, 6 different continents. You have to balance that stuff.
So just explain that to me. When you say there's competition, is there also competition from various cities, say within Canada? Like they're coming to you saying, we want the event, and you being the UFC saying we can only accommodate so many shows in this particular region, this territory, country, whatever, and we have to sort of
figure... I can tell you, after I made the announcement yesterday, I was getting tweets from all over the country saying, why not Ottawa? How come you're not coming to Edmonton? We want you to come to Halifax. Does that mean we're not going to get this? And people from Calgary, fans from Vancouver, fans from Saskatchewan. And those are the kinds of things that you have to work with. And if you're only going to be able to have 3 or 4 events of the global schedule on an annual basis in Canada, and we've already made the commitment that Montreal and Toronto are going to be tentpole cities, that only leaves 1 or 2 cities that you can go into to fulfill the Canadian complement. And remember, when you take a look at it, Canada this year will get 3 out of 13 pay-per-views. And that's a significant percentage of the pay-per-views that we have around the world, and it's remarkable that we're getting that as it is.
Wouldn't that be expected though? Because Dana has said that Canada is the mecca of mixed martial arts. So,
well, I think it's a reflection of how strong the market is here. You're absolutely right, Perry. But I think that as it relates to meccas, there's nothing that Canada wouldn't help Canada than another 50 million people wouldn't help. And Brazil is probably the most dynamic market and growing market right now at the moment. Right now, Canada is number 2 in terms of revenue around the world, but we'll lose that position to Brazil probably next year.
Is that basically because Brazil has the most number of let's say, participants, the most number of people that are actively involved in MMA? Why would you lose it to Brazil? Was Brazil there all along?
Well, I would tell you that one of the reasons why is that Brazil has 205 million people. We have 35 million people. So they've got 7 times the population. Mixed martial arts has been on a tear of late. It's now the second most popular sport in all of Brazil after soccer. Obviously, there's the depth of field and the talent that's there. 3 of our champions are Brazilian. So, but that market is a market that we've only started to develop in the last 2, 3, 4 years. So, we've been here in Canada. We've had an office in Canada for 3 years, and we just opened our office in Rio 2 months ago.
Which is a good thing. I mean, that's all part of Dana's plan, the UFC's plan, to grow the brand exponentially around the world beyond just where it had been. This is all part of in conjunction with the package with Fox to get the product to as many places as possible, to make the UFC available to as many people who want to see it in person.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
When you mentioned just a few minutes ago about the tweets that you were getting, did you get any tweets from Calgary? Was there any people who were saying kind of what happened? Like, I thought we were getting the show.
Absolutely, yeah, and I understand their sentiment. I mean, Dana at the end of a press conference, and I think it was on the Super Bowl weekend fight, if memory serves. That's
correct. That's when he said it. Yeah.
Somebody asked, are you going to go back to Calgary and quote unquote right the wrong, and he's absolutely committed to doing that as I am. But you know what? You have to make sure that it's one thing to say that. You just have to make sure that you've got the right time. You can pull together the right card. There's enough lead time to do it. It works well with the venue you want to do it. There's a whole bunch of other circumstances that impact those kinds of decisions. And make no mistake. We absolutely will come back to Calgary. Dana will make good on his word, and we'll make good on our commitment, and it'll be a great show, I guarantee it.
Was there an assumption that Calgary was going to be part of the plan this year?
There wasn't an assumption on my part.
No, I'm saying for people who, when Dana made that comment, do you think there was an assumption that it was going to happen this year, and then when it's going to come back next year? Was there people just maybe misreading what he was saying?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Okay.
I think that we wherever Dana goes around the world, when he goes to London, when he goes to Liverpool, when he goes to Tokyo, when are you coming back? Because that's obviously the question that always gets asked, and we obviously want to come back to these markets, and so I mean, you'd have to ask the people who were making those assumptions to know whether that's what they were assuming.
Okay. You're going into Winnipeg for the first time. It's always interesting going into a place for the first time because you got to work on logistics. You got to work on new partners, or at least new arena officials and people. That whole thing. What are the kind of things that you, as an operations type person, look at? Specifically when you're going into a place where you haven't been before.
Well, you know what? First and foremost, I think you want to make sure you've got a great relationship with the venue where your event's going to be held. And I held extensive. We'd been on the phone with the folks at True North Sports and the MTS Center for quite some time, and I met with them extensively over the last 2 days. And we've got a really strong relationship with them, which is great. We also wanted to scout out the city for for hotels. We want to scout out the city for venues that we can hold our press conferences, where we can hold our open workouts, where potentially we can hold our weigh-ins if we're not holding them at the MTS Center. You want to make sure you have an opportunity to meet with the Tourism Winnipeg, the other government agencies that are in place to help promote events throughout Manitoba and throughout the city. Want to have a chance to sit down and meet with the commission. The Manitoba Combative Sports Commission is one of the best in the country, and had a chance to do that. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that most people wouldn't be aware of, and that's the kind of homework that needs to be done before you can really have a successful event in a new city.
You've already announced the main event. It's a pretty significant event. It's Shogun Rua against Little Nog.
Actually, I'll correct you. We've not announced the main event. We've that one that you just mentioned, Shogun versus Little Nog, is actually going to be on the main pay-per-view card, but it's not the main event.
So is there a possibility that the main event would be a championship event of some sort?
Yes, there will.
Okay, so I mean, is that important too, again, when you go to a place for the first time, to try and have a championship event, because it just adds a little bit more cachet to the card?
No question. I think that on paper, we want to make sure that every single pay-per-view, there's only 13 of them in a year, is carries a championship bout on the card, and UFC 161 in Winnipeg will be no exception. When
will you announce what the main event is?
Well, I guess we'll announce it when it's decided upon. Is the quick answer. I'm not the matchmaker, as you know, Perry.
Yeah.
Up to Dana and to Joe Silva and Sean Shelby to make those decisions, and I suspect we'll have most of the card finalized in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Good. Tom, thanks for joining us this morning. As I said, it's always interesting when the UFC goes to a new place. There's always excitement by people who haven't seen the product in person. It's a tremendous event to watch in person. Watching it on TV doesn't do justice to what you see when you're actually there. Best of luck with the UFC in Winnipeg.
Thanks, Perry, and I can guarantee not only Winnipeg and Manitoba, but Canadian fight fans, if you have a chance to go to Winnipeg, the MTS Center is a great, intimate venue, and that city's going to rock. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you.